Greetings fellow Bond fans and welcome back to another episode of Some Bond Geek Talks About with me, your host, the name's Stevens, Henry Stevens. Everybody, how'd you do? Hope you're enjoying a good Bond film, a good Bond book, a good Bond video game, a good Bond whatever, because it's a pleasure to have you here today on the day that we are going to discuss the third James Bond film, the film that's often described as iconic. That is Goldfinger. Yes, absolutely. Now, before we get into discussing Goldfinger, a couple little bit of house cleaning to do before we get into it. So, number one, first off, if you are not a subscriber of the channel, why not? Why not subscribe? Why don't you click down below on the subscribe button and the notification bell icon to receive future updates and videos. And as always, everybody, a massive thank you from me to you for those who do. And those who are just watching and just saying hi first time, hi, nice to see you. Why don't you watch a couple of other videos on the channel? See what we're all about here on the Bond channel as well. Right, everybody. So, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to look into Goldfinger today. The phenomenon that is Goldfinger. I think one of the utter pinnacles of the franchise to, I think, the general consensus public. And here is my initial thoughts on Goldfinger before we go into a bit more detail about it. You know, a lot of people online, and a lot of people when they talk about this film, they say the word it's iconic, and they hate using that word iconic, like, you know, this is so iconic and stuff, like it's a lazy thing. But the truth of the matter is, I think, for the most part, Goldfinger is a really iconic moment in film history. As I think it's a very iconic moment of the 60s, enough. You know, there is such a thing as the Goldfinger phenomenon. And to go into this point, how much Goldfinger has affected my life, what I love to do in these reviews is discuss with you all, like, how, you know, the personal side of things, you know, me growing up with James Bond and how it's affected my life in the most positive way possible. Because that's what part of what the channel is about. And Goldfinger has done that on many, many occasions. Let me give you the example. Now, in my previous review of From Russia with Love, I talked about how I watched a lot of Bond films growing up with my grandfather, and this is no exception. He loved Goldfinger. We watched Goldfinger a lot. So I have really fond memories of watching, like, the VHS with him. Do you know what? Actually, when I think about it, Goldfinger was the third Bond film I ever saw. I mean, as I said, I remember having the VHS and just rewatching it again and again and again. I loved watching Goldfinger when I was a kid. But the other thing I think this film really did, looking back on it now, is as well as my dad's love of this game, I think golf really got introduced to me here, and I started learning how to play golf. For the record, if any of you are wondering, I guarantee you, I put the emphasis on I try to play golf. A good game of golf for me is when I get down, you know, from, you know, when you hit the ball down to the hole in less than 10 shots. That to me is a good hole. But I do love it. But you know what? The golf sequence from this film really has affected my life in a nice way, because when I play, like, with my family or friends, you know, if we've lost, you know, if you found a ball, you do the odd job. Aha! Which is, you know, just one of the things we joke about. And, you know, if ever you're playing golf and the golf ball goes off the freeway, we do the, you know, Sean Connery line, bad luck, you're in the rough. You know, and all that sort of jazz and all that stuff. You know, we keep on quoting that stuff. It's all part of the fun, I think, of Goldfinger. Really, really is. And I remember as a kid, playing with my best friend, you know, on the playground, we used to, you know, play out some Bond sequences and stuff. We always used to mess around, pretend like we're in Goldfinger. Always great fun. But anyhow, that's some of, like, stories from my childhood, how a real personal connection I have to this film per se. But of course, no film is perfect. We need to discuss some bad points in this film, because I'm afraid there are a few, with, you know, believe it or not. Number one, I'm going to bring this up again. I mentioned this in Dr. No, but it's, again, the actor they've got to play Felix Leiter. I don't know what it is, because we as Bond fans, we love Felix Leiter. He's like Bond's best friend. You know, he's the ally. You know, I always get excited when Felix Leiter comes on, but we're now rewatching them again just for the purposes of this review. It's still not very good. I think we like the idea of Felix Leiter and just not the actors are playing him, because even though this one was, you know, nice enough actor to play Felix Leiter, it still isn't that really good. And, you know, it's a bit of a weak point in the movie. And the other thing I really don't really stand in this movie, yeah, you really can't stand, is the whole Kentucky race location. I think it's just honestly a bit boring. Now, I'm fully aware, and I'll go into detail how important things happen at Goldfinger's racetrack, and some great things happen within it. But as an actual location, going, that race course, I just have to think that is just a big... I think it nearly stops the film dead in its tracks. So much happens there, which is great, but it's just not really aesthetically pleasing, or in comparison to everything else in the film, it's just like, you could say it's the utter weak point. But everybody, let's chat about the plethora of good things in this movie, and I'm going to have to be so careful that I get everything down. So let's start off right at the beginning. Pre-title sequence is utterly amazing. I used to imitate pretending to play this whole action sequence, with my friends or by myself, pretend I'm swimming, coming out the water, doing that little kick, running, all that stuff. Really, really great opening title sequence. Great fight sequence as well. Shocking. Utterly shocking. Also in this film, obviously, you get the incredible Dame Shirley Bassey song Goldfinger, the iconic title sequence as well to go with it, and song. Let's face it. Again, I said that word, iconic. This film is iconic. And of course, now moving into that, I've talked about the race course, the whole sequence of Miami Beach. And let's just chat about it here. The Jill Marston gold painted death scene. I mean, what about a picture of the Bond franchise is that whole sort of, that Jill Marston dead covered in gold body there. It really is. It's just such a... you can see it on screen now. It just grabs you, doesn't it? It really does. It's so mesmerizing and so Bondish, isn't it? In such a wonderful, wonderful way. That whole sequence in Miami Beach is great. And I talked about the golf sequence. You've got, chasing Goldfinger through Switzerland, which is just beautiful. And then at the end as well, you've got the whole Fort Knox. Oh my God, Fort Knox. And, I've got to talk about it here right now, because Fort Knox is just terrific in this movie, isn't it? The whole look of it, the whole how Goldfinger's plan, which we'll get into a bit more detail about it. The big battle sequence at the end, the actual look of Fort Knox inside, the whole battle Bond has with Oddjob. It's such an epic finale to a movie. It really is, in just everything, and there's so much more in this film. Let's talk right now about the cast, okay? Sean Connery is still Bond, and I think he is at the most at ease at Bond in this film. I still stand by, I think his performance in From Russia with Love is better, but I can honestly hand on high, he's just really comfortable in the role now, and he's just giving it his all again, which is so great. Love to see. The MI6 regulars of M, Q and Moneypenny are terrific here. Obviously, Q's a lot more fleshed out now, isn't he? The idea that Guy Hamilton said is, no, you're not just nice to him, something. You don't like him. He messes up your gadgets. The Q character for the rest of the franchise, everybody. What more to say? It got birthed here properly, and it's such a wonderful thing. And I'm going to bring it up here because I really, really want to talk about it. The beautiful, yes, I've got my toy here, Aston Martin DB5, complete with rear view bulletproof thing. You've got the front bumper here to let out the machine guns going da 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 da. And of course, everybody, it's coming. The ejector seat. Yes, oh God, this car, apart from being just one of the most beautiful cars in the world, it's just absolutely a scene stealer. It was a character in its own, and it carries on that car to this day in the franchise. The fact that we're getting it in No Time to Die is just proof of that. It's such an iconic car, and it got birthed in the sequence. The whole action sequence with the Aston Martin DB5, intentionally designed, to be fair, to show off all its gadgets. It's just wonderful. I'm going to do a Ben Kingsley. It's movie magic, love. It's just so wonderful to see, and I love every single minute of it when it's on screen. It's such a shame when it gets crushed at the middle of it, but it's so good. And let's talk as well about, here, just so going on characters, we need to talk about the villains as well before we get on to Bond girls and all sorts of things. Auric Goldfinger, one of the definitive Bond villains of all time. Just fact. I think it's just fact. In my opinion, it is a near gone conclusion of the fact that Goldfinger is one of the most universally loved villains of all time. I was thinking about this before I did the review. He sort of belonged, you could say, in a Roger Moore-ish sort of Bond film, the top. But because he's in a Connery Bond film, he can have the over-the-topness. But there's that dangerous side to him that's allowed to sort of explain itself a bit more and be more present, which I think really works as well. But, Gert Frobe, God bless Gert Frobe. I know he's had a very, very bad past, but as an actor, he just always delivered. And yes, I know his voice is dubbed, if you're wondering if I didn't know that already. But he's just such a presence. I mean, let's take the laser sequence in the movie. I think one of the most famous scenes in the Bond franchise, of course, where if you expect me to talk, no, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. Such a smart, intelligent villain. And I think his evil plot as well is shown in this, because I remember the scene in Kentucky where Bond works out what his plan is, and he just goes, Goldfinger, you genius, that's brilliant. Even he's admiring his intellect here, because the whole bad guy plot about, destroying the US gold supply and increasing his like tenfold, making 1 million, 10 million, is just terrific Bond idea, a great villain idea, and so well thought out, I think, in this movie. I think it's just absolutely terrific. He is, without a doubt, again, scene stealer. I only wish he got a better showdown at the end on the plane. And of course, henchman. We had Red Grant, the last one, and what a follow. You have Oddjob, the metal rim hat throwing just icon of the franchise. I mean, I'm a 90s kid, everybody. And if you're a 90s kid, you played James Bond games in the 90s and early noughties. And in multiplayer, you played Oddjob because you got his hat as a weapon. And you just wanted to fling that. Be honest, how many of us got some hats and tried to fling like Oddjob? I'm handing up. I admit, I did as well. It's just such an iconic thing. He's so brilliant in this film. And it's just such a presence, isn't he? A real, actually, quite menacing presence in a weird and yet brilliant sort of like, you just love to hate him. But let's talk about Bond girls here as well, because we need to talk about that as well. Obviously, you've got, Jill Masterson, I'd say, Goldfinger's concubine. As I mentioned earlier, very famously now, she's known for the one who died being painted gold, a real icon of the franchise, golden covered lady. Really interesting character. You got Tilly Masterson, her sister, which was all right. And then, of course, you got Honor Blackman as Pussy Galore. Now, I'm going to say right off the bat here, as some of you don't know, I think the idea that Bond women in these films are portrayed as, say, bimbos and just, incapable of anything is completely wrong. It has happened sometime in the franchise, like from Rush of Love with Tatiana, but Honey Rider in the first film and now Pussy Galore, what a great character. A woman who is so strong, independent, could stand on her own 2 feet, who's made a name of herself. Really, really inspiring stuff, and I love seeing this character. And such an interesting character arc, really. But I will say this, and I have to say it now, because obviously in this film, there are, say things that is just wrong, you could say. Number one is obviously having a lesbian character and, Bond, through Bond's power of seduction, turning her straight. It's not the first time, it's not, sorry, when I say it's the first time, it's been done again, like in Kevin Smith's Chasing Amy. It's something that isn't right. It's a thing of its times. You should just watch this film and accept it's part of the times and part of its times charm. Yes, we know, and it's up to us to educate people that no, that's not right, and how the character behaves. Because let's be fair, Bond basically just, all intents and purposes, raped Pussy Galore. I mean, yes, she started that, eventually she actually liked it and carried on, so it was eventually consensual, you could say. But the way he started that, no. Obviously, absolutely not. But hey, that shouldn't mean you should get rid of this film at all, because that would be a travesty to everything. But as I say, the music from John Barry is credible. The action sequences are great. The pacing, this film has a very different style to what Terrence Young did. This one is very much a slightly more enjoyable fun romp than a very serious spy drama. But it works. This film is iconic for every reason I mentioned above. Goldfinger is absolutely in the upper echelon of Bond films. It's a film everyone should at least watch, I think, once in their life. A wonderful, great story, great comedy, action, dialogue, story, characters, you name it. It is in Goldfinger. But I want to know, everybody, what's your thoughts on Goldfinger? Are you in agreement with me? Do you disagree with me? I want to know. Comment down below and tell me what you think about this film. As always, everybody, my name's Henry. This has been some Bond Geek Talks About. Goodbye.